I'm Jean, and this is the English Experience. Today, on the English Experience, we're going to talk about prepositions. Only three. We're going to talk about in, on, and at, because these three words are tiny, but they can cause a lot of confusion. So, today we're going to try and see if we can find a way to help us to remember when and how to use these prepositions when we are talking about time and also when we are discussing place. Let's get started. Let's start with the preposition in. So how do we use in to talk about time? Well, we use in when we are speaking in general, not specific. For example, if we are talking about years or seasons or months. For example, in January, in 2021, in springtime, in summertime. So we use in when it's a very unspecific, maybe a large amount of time and very general. Let's talk about on. When do we use the preposition on? So on is a little bit more specific, but not exact, okay? For example, we use on when we are referring to days of the week and also holidays. So let's see, on Monday, on Friday, on Wednesday, on Christmas, on New Year's. So on is a bit more specific because we know the day, right? We know that it's maybe Monday the 12th or Monday the 13th. So it's a bit more specific, but still not exact. So let's go on to at. How do we use at? At, it's exact, okay? So we use at when we are giving specific times or when we use the terms noon or midnight because, again, these are exact times, right? 12 p.m., 12 a.m., noon or midnight. These are exact times. So we use at when we are using either the exact time or when using those terms noon or midnight. So let's see if we can put them all together. For example, you might say, I was born in 1996 on July 12th at 4 p.m. So, in, very general, on, a bit more specific, and at, exact. Okay. How can we use these same prepositions when we are discussing places? Actually, it's quite similar, but there are some differences that we should be aware of. Let's talk about those differences. So, when we are speaking of place, we use in to discuss an enclosed, a closed, or defined space. For example, a house, a building. It's an enclosed space, right? It's closed around you, so you are in. You are in the house. You are in the building. So in is enclosed. And also defined. We use in when we are speaking of defined spaces. So it may be open. It may not be enclosed, but maybe it's clearly defined. For example, a border. Each country has a border, and that border is defined, right? We know what that border is. So we can say, I live in Portugal, I live in Mexico, I live in Guatemala, I live in America. So we can say in for countries because each country has a defined border, right? So we can apply that A person, maybe they are in the garden, okay? Because maybe we know exactly what the garden is. The garden is open. Maybe it's outside in the open, but it is a defined space. Okay, so on. How do we use on? So we use on to talk about something on a surface, generally a flat surface. And we also use it to talk about public transportation. Not all forms of public transportation, but some. So let's talk about some surfaces. For example, a television. That's a flat surface, right? So we can say, what's on TV? What's on television? We can use on, right? Because the television is a surface. Same thing with a smartphone. If you look at the phone, hey, what are you watching on YouTube? Or what are you looking at on Facebook? So we can use on to talk about that surface as well. Put the phone on the table. What's on the menu at the restaurant, right? Because a menu, again, is a surface. So we can use on for that. And we can also use it for some forms of public transportation. Not all, but some. For example, if we are talking about the bus or the train or an airplane, we can say, I was on the bus. I was on the airplane. I was on the train. So we can use on for those forms of transportation, but not all. For example, if it's a car or if it's a taxi, you are in. You're in the car. You're in the taxi. I'm not sure why the difference there, but yeah. So we use on for some forms of public transportation, but again, not all of them. Okay. How about at? How do we use at to talk about place? Well, at is very, very distinct, okay? It's an exact location. So we can say, I told him to meet me at the bus stop. We can say she works at the doctor's office. And actually, because the doctor's office is also an enclosed building, an enclosed space, we can say she works in the doctor's office. She works at the doctor's office. And sometimes those prepositions are interchangeable without really changing the meaning. But you have to be careful because in some cases, it can have an effect on the idea. It can change the idea or the meaning if you switch between the prepositions in and at. Okay, so let's see if we can put all of these prepositions together. So I could say, I am in Michigan on the east side of town at the bar. Okay? So it kind of helps us if we keep this idea of like in being a large space, on being a more specific space, and then at being exact. So again, these two things, while they are not exactly the same, we don't use them exactly the same way, it's still very similar, some of the ways that we can think of them in terms of the size. You know, in is large, on is more specific, and then at is exact. Although for place, on is also this a flat surface, right? It can be on the table, on the floor, on the menu, on the television, on the smartphone. So yeah, these are some ways that we can remember how to use these small prepositions when we are discussing time and place. So I hope that has been helpful for you. If you have any topic that you would like me to address or discuss, if there is some part of the language that is very complex and you wish that there was a much more simple way to understand it, leave me a comment below. Please like this video and subscribe, and yeah, I will see you next time with more English tips and tricks. See you later. Bye.